welcome back to Happy Hour here on the Craft Beer Runner. Today I'm joined by my friend Woody, who I met up here in Seattle through running at breweries. We used to meet at Northwest Peaks Brewery every Thursday night for a run and a beer. Woody's kind of a jack of all trades, and as you get to know him, you learn more and more about him. I've known Woody for almost 2 years now, maybe three. And even this past week, I learned more information about him. So it's just kind of like an onion. You keep peeling more layers of stories of his. So let me quickly introduce him and we can get to drinking and some storytelling. Woody, you want to say hi and a quick introduction?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm a runner and a drinker and a brewer and like it all.
All right, great. And what are you drinking today? I saw that giant bottle that you popped the cork on already.
So this is the, you know what? It's from DeGard. Samonnier, maybe. Could be wrong. It's a wild fermentation with Viognier grapes and that sort of thing. I've been interested in trying something from DeGard over there on Tillamook for a while, and somebody gave this to me a couple of weeks ago, and I was looking for an excuse to share it with somebody, and nobody wanted to split it with me. So this is as good as we get. Got the bottle myself.
Unfortunately, I don't get to try any. I'm only 5 miles away. I don't get to try any. I'm drinking Reuben's Galaxy Crush from their Crush series.
Nice.
Picked this up at our local PCC a few minutes ago. I realized earlier today that my fridge is full of hard seltzers from last week's video and not too many beers. And the beers I have I already done on this channel. So open this up, pour it, and we can get started. Cheers, Woody.
Cheers. Looks like you got a nice hazy one there.
Yeah, it's so it is a hazy IPA, obviously with Galaxy. That's the name, Galaxy Crush. So as I mentioned, Woody and I met at Northwest Peaks Brewery where we meet for runs, and that's where I learned early on that he was part of the Hash House Harriers back in Idaho. What do you want to talk a little bit what the Hash House Harriers are? How did you get involved?
Sure. So the Hash House Harriers, or the Hashers, is a self-proclaimed group of drinkers with a running problem. I had been very into running when I was younger, and then sort of fell out of running for quite a while there. As I was getting back into it, the idea of going out and drinking beers with people once a week seemed like a great way to get back into it. So met up with these guys, and we would typically run about 4 miles. And if you've never experienced a hash before, it's quite the event. You show up and there's a bit of drinking and a bit of hazing before you start running, and you go about a mile and a half, and then you typically stop for a beer, and then you go another mile and a half, and you stop for your second beer. Then you finish up the run, and there's more drinking and hazing. And once all that is done, then the drinking really begins with the socializing side of it. So I enjoyed doing that for quite a while. Everybody in the hash has their own unique hash name that the group gives you. At some point I finally realized that spending 2+ hours on a Monday night to go out for a 4-mile run was just not going to work with my schedule anymore, and I slowly drifted away from the Hashers, but still have fond memories of it, and love the fact that it's an international group, which means when I've traveled, I've been able to meet up with these guys and do all sorts of fun stuff.
Are you legally allowed to reveal your name here on video?
You know what? I don't believe I was ever sworn to secrecy. So my hash name is Asphalt. I was biking away one day after a hash, as sober as one would be biking away from such an event. I was still very capable of riding the bike, but hit a bump in the parking lot just as I was moving my hands from the upper bars to the drop bar. The wheel turned and my hand missed the drop bar. The wheel turned 90 degrees. I went right over it. Some pretty bad road rash. I think I cracked a rib. Just just pretty banged up. And the next week I was back, they were like, and we've now named you. You are now Asphalt, not because you landed on the asphalt, but because your injury was your own dumbass fault, and that stuck.
That sounds very Hasherish.
Yeah,
Hasherish, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I've never actually been involved with the Hashers. You and I have like, two other friends back from my LA days that were parts of the Hashers, actually three that I know of. And then also, I've been to events where someone confused me for a Hasher. They said, reminded them of something they knew from them, and asked me what my Hasher name was, and I was like, I don't have one. So I've never actually officially joined. I do enjoy pub runs, but my pub runs seem very tame compared to some of the hash stories I've heard.
Tame is such a relative term, because I think the first run I really remember going on with you was your birthday bash, which was something like 18 miles and 5 breweries and a donut shop. So yes. I mean, to a lot of people, I think 4 miles and 3 beers sounds far more tame than 18 miles. So to each their own, I guess.
We kind of alluded to this story once or twice on this channel before. One of our most epic beer runs or pub runs was on Halloween, or was a week before Halloween in Santa Monica, where we had a group of 30 to 40 people, I don't recall, all in costume. We hit 6 bars in 6 miles, and one of the bars was doing like a 2-for-1 happy hour on hard liquor. And that's when it all went downhill. And there was also an ice cream shop involved. There was karaoke involved. There was people losing their costumes along the way involved.
It sounds a lot like a hash.
Yeah, so maybe it's not as tame as a hash. So I don't know. I was saying to you earlier, I kind of feel like, at least in my perception, that hashing is kind of going away. I could be wrong. It just feels like a different generation to me, but maybe in 5 years, I'm that right target for that group.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think there's certainly hashers of all ages. It does seem to attract people in the 40 plus age range, which I've now found myself falling into. So I'm now perfect for going back to the hash. But I know that they've got hashers of all ages. One of my friends here is a hasher at maybe 26 or something like that, and she's been involved for quite a while. So I do think they target a slightly different demographic than a lot of run clubs. They tend to draw people who don't necessarily consider themselves to be runners, which is always interesting. The idea that you would go out for a weekly run and still not consider yourself a runner is always interesting. But the
running sounds like a mechanism to get to beer.
Yeah, definitely, and the almost the ceremony and not quite religious side of it, but that whole custom and ceremony side of hashing is a very important part of it for the group. And because of that, they have chapters around the world. People move someplace and start new chapters. So, yeah.
Let's get back over to the beer side of things. So as mentioned, you are a jack of all trades. So besides the running, you also are a home brewer. You've been home brewing for 10 years. How did you get into home brewing?
Mostly I'm a maker. I like building and tinkering and making stuff. And that to me is the exciting stuff. And so actually when I first started drinking beer regularly, I wanted to get into making it. And so I tried a couple batches, and they were pretty terrible, but it was fun to do. And then I moved to the UK and was told that everybody homebrews in the UK and it'd be so easy to get into it. And I was over there for 3 years and met a total of like 2 homebrewers, and did not brew at all, and had to wait until I got back stateside before really starting to get back into homebrewing again, and have been doing it more or less since getting back.
You say you're a maker, and I mean, besides homebrewing, stuff I've learned about you, you make computer motherboard. What's the brand? Is it
I
Raspberry?
I
Raspberry
do some
Pi?
work with Raspberry Pi. My main thing is with Arduinos, and so I actually use the Arduino Nano just to really geek out here for a second on an expansion board and build robots and build different things with that. And then professionally, I work with high school and middle school students, getting them excited about building and making stuff as well. And so,
And you're also a sourdough baker.
yeah, that ties in with the whole making thing as well. Making bread, I've got some bread rising right now. And over the weekend, I made some loaves for the Community Loaves Project for our local food bank, HopeLink. Um, so, yeah. Um, Making stuff and repairing stuff. It's always fun. Someplace over here, I've got a 3D printer and other fun tools as well.
What's for you? What have you found to be your biggest challenge in the home brewing? Once you got the hang of it, what's your biggest challenge?
Man, the biggest challenge for me is just the time. I quickly internalized the idea that if you're a real home brewer, you're going to be doing all grain batches, and I try hard to get rid of that idea because brewing with extract is you're going to produce really good beer as well, and you're still making beer. But in my head, all grain is the way to go. But all grain brewing can take all day to make a 5 gallon batch. And unlike sourdough bread that might take all day, you can't just get it going and let it go and come back and see if it's doing its thing. You gotta tend it most of the day. And I've got a 4-year-old now, and uh, 4-year-old kids and watching 8 gallons of boiling liquid for 5 hours doesn't really, they don't mesh. She's helped me stir the beer once or twice, but um, it makes me nervous, and it makes mom nervous too. So we don't do a lot of that right now. Gotta figure out a better system.
What has been your favorite style to brew?
Oh, I really like stouts and porters. I've that since really starting to drink beer, those were my go-tos. And so those were the ones that I liked brewing most. And like throwing some smoked malt in there as well, just to get a nice um, smoky flavor. I think earlier I would hammer on people with the smoked malts more than was absolutely necessary. The Alaskan smoked porter was one of my favorites for a while, and I still enjoy it, but not as much as I used to. And think that really encouraged me to go pretty hard on that smoked malt flavor.
And if one of your friends or neighbors has had all 25 of your brews, what would they say was your best brew?
Oh man, my oatmeal stout is a pretty good one.
And
I've
that's
also
when you
got
just tapped the keg a few
I
weeks
just
ago.
blew. Yeah. I've done that one a couple times, and that one just blew. Um, let's see here. We've got Sierra liked one of them that was an amber a while ago, I think. Um, let's see here. I got my recipes here. Let me just remind myself what I had brewed. Oh, I think she liked the citrus pale ale I did. Um, that was pretty fun. That had some Amarillo hops in it, and then some orange peel as well. Um,
What's the most challenging type of style you've brewed?
uh, Kolsch is getting up there in terms of challenge, not because the brewing itself is actually challenging, but um, if you get any sort of off flavors in there, there's no place for it to hide. With the smoked porter, if you get wild yeast in there, nobody's going to taste the difference. But with the lighter beers, it's tough. Early on, I tried to brew an Irish Red, which is not super light, but it's a lighter beer. Um, and it got some nasty infection in it, and I couldn't drink it. It just tasted so it it tasted like a Belgian beer, which if you like Belgian beers, it was perfect. But I was expecting Irish Red, and so it was terrible. But looking to get rid of it, I just relabeled it as Belgian Red and took it to a party. And I had friends who said it was the best Belgian they had ever had. To which I was like, "Would you like another bottle to take with you? This is gross." But they loved it. So and because of that, I've never been able to appreciate a Belgian beer from that day forward, because I know they're good, but to me they just taste like I made a mistake in the brewing process.
So besides homebrewing, before you moved to Seattle, you were in Boise. When you were in Boise, you had a radio show and a podcast, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So I had friends who were with Radio Boise, the local community station in town, and I'd go in and hang out when they were on air, um, and was active in the homebrew scene. And one day when I was there, I mentioned to the station manager, I'm like, look, the brewing scene in this town is exploding. I mean, when I moved there were probably 4 or 5 breweries, and by the time I mentioned this, there were about 10 or 12, and there were another 5 or 6 that were opening soon. It's like, you guys need to have somebody do a short radio show just about the beer scene in town. And they said, great. When do you want to start? I go, I know nothing about radio. I know nothing about producing audio, and I know none of the brewers in town. They're friends of friends, but I don't know the actual brewers themselves. It needs to be somebody else. And they said, oh, okay. In that case, then take a month to figure those things out, and you can get started then. And for whatever reason, I said yes, um, and turned out about 100 episodes that were on the radio, and then also in a podcast. And went around to local brewers and talked to them about what they were brewing and some of the process behind it, and what flavors they were trying to get out of their beers, and what was coming down the line, and all sorts of stuff like that. It was a lot of fun.
You were saying earlier that the purpose of the show was more so to educate people that like craft beer or like beer, but didn't really know too much about it, to learn more about it, correct?
Yeah, my big hope was that there were a lot of people in town who, despite the growing beer scene in Boise, um, would still go with either a large national beer or something coming out of Seattle or Portland, because I mean, Seattle and Portland are brew towns, and people tend not to look at what's right in front of them. And what I wanted to do was showcase a lot of the local talent for brewing, and say, yeah, there's stuff that you can get nationally, but did you also know that we're brewing stuff just like that here, that you can get without paying the premium, and it's made with grain that's grown in Idaho, and Idaho is one of the biggest hop producers in the world, and so the hops are from here as well. um, Really take pride in the brewing that's going on all around you, and enjoy those drinks. And you don't have to go for the big name brewery, but if you want to, a lot of these beers will go toe to toe against those. So yeah,
How many episodes did you say you did of this?
just shy of 100. Along with breweries in Boise, anytime I traveled, I took business cards, and I can't tell you how useful those things are. Um, there were a number of times where I'd show up completely unannounced in a town. I'd see that they had a brewery. I'd walk up, I'd hand them a business card, and I'd say, "Can I get 10 minutes of time with your brewer?" Um, and that would usually end with uh, a couple pints of free beer and a long chat with the brewer, which was, man, there are a few things better than getting to a town you've never been to and having a chat with a brewer and getting some free beer. Sometimes, like, beer that like hasn't even come out to the market yet. They're like, we're going to release this in 2 days, but I want you to taste it and tell me what you think. Um, it ups your status immensely to have people think that you know what you're doing because you have a podcast and a business card. So make sure you get some business cards.
Before I wrap up with our final questions, I want to, given that you like to be in the mountains, you like to run, you like to explore, I like to ask some of my friends that have similar outdoorsy interests that I do, what their most scenic beer, or best beer with a view that you can remember.
Best beer with a view. Um, Actually, one of the ones that I really like was Seven Seas in Coos Bay. We were coming up, and again, stopped by on Saturday night to try to talk to the brewer, and brewer wasn't around. So we said, well, we're leaving town tomorrow morning, but we'll try to stop by. The brewer brought us in, and like, they're not quite on the water in Coos Bay, but they're close enough that you still get all the sounds and the smells of the water, and you can see it. And the brewer brought us in. It was the brewer and the owner, um, and I asked for like 5 or 10 minutes. He wasn't even there at the time, came in from home because somebody else was there to talk to me. We ended up talking for about 90 minutes. He didn't let me leave without a growler of beer. There's something about the Oregon coast that's just magical. And talking beer with somebody who is just passionate about it really just made that a wonderful experience.
It's interesting because my friend Brian, who loves to be in the mountains, loves to explore, we've definitely taken a shot of something called Black Death, which is this liquor from Iceland on a mountain somewhere. And when I asked him his favorite, his most memorable beer with a view, I believe he brought up a brewery in Oregon. It's like, so something about, breweries that are right on the water in Oregon.
Yeah, I don't know, like a brewery on the Oregon coast is just, for me, like the quintessential experience of Oregon, which is weird because I haven't spent a ton of time there, but that says Oregon to me as a brewery on the coast. But yeah, it was great.
All right, let's finish up with the 4-pack of questions.
All right.
So question number 1 is, do you remember your first experience with beer?
My first experience with beer that I remember was when I was just a little kid, and I remember being in South Florida and drinking some of my dad's beer, and not being totally impressed with it, but I do remember that. And then in college, I remember drinking some bad beer, but it wasn't until shortly after that I remember having some good beer.
Yeah, I haven't asked anyone. I get occasionally, but I haven't asked anyone their first memory of good beer.
Yeah,
that should be
very different. Very
it might
different
evolve to that eventually. Like once I get tired of hearing these stories of, I had my dad's beer when I was a kid and I hated it, I might eventually just switch it to, what's your first memory of good beer?
Yeah. When I started drinking beer, it was in Oregon.
How about this? Let's start today. What's your first memory of good beer?
I actually remember, and this is probably debatable now, but at the time it was great. I was living in McMinnville, Oregon, and McMinniman's just opened their Hotel Oregon, and I remember going there on my 21st and having some actually beer that I said, you know what, I want to have more of this. This isn't just cheap, nasty stuff that you drink or pour down the drain, but like this was worth going back to. And I think McMiniman's is consistently decent beer.
Okay, and let's get to question number 2 is, what is your favorite style of beer?
Definitely stouts and porters originally. I've grown to love some sours, but I still probably default to those darker beers.
So similar to what you like to brew.
Yeah.
All right, question number 3, inside the state of Washington, so locally to us, what is your favorite brewery?
And there's a lot. I gotta say Northwest Peaks for their running side of it as well. But then also there's a few over in Redmond where my parents live that I've enjoyed. Postdoc and Black Raven have both turned out some good beers.
I was going to make sure you said Postdoc if you said Redmond. They make some really good stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then the final question is, outside the state of Washington, your favorite brewery?
I gotta say I'm pretty partial to some of the ones in Boise still. Cloud 9, which is it's actually a nano brew. It's really tiny. Turns out a different beer every week, and they have been making some amazing stuff. And then also Woodland Empire and Barbarian. Barbarian, I just love that the head brewer is like, I talked to him and he's like, yeah, I'm trying to evolve this strain of yeast by slowly upping the alcohol and going through several life cycles. I'm like, this is hardcore biology stuff that you're doing. And he just sort of shrugged it off as, yeah, that's what you got to do if you want to brew good beer. So he was coming up with some really unique flavors, but Woodland Empire and Barbarian and Cloud 9 in Boise.
All right, great. Everyone, thank you for joining us today to listen to Woody tell some great stories of running and drinking and brewing and talking about beer. So please like this video. Please subscribe to this channel. Woody, thanks for coming on. Cheers.
Cheers.